Hey everyone, I don't even know where to start with this, but I guess it's best to just dive right in. My name's James, and my wife, Sarah, and I have been together for about 8 years, married for 5. When I think back, I realize we've had a solid run, or at least I thought we did. Sarah was my high school sweetheart. I genuinely thought she was my other half. We went through the ups and downs of college together, struggled through a few job changes, and even got through the awkward post-wedding ADJ. Recently, though, things started feeling off. It wasn't one huge thing at first, just small details that didn't sit right. Like I'd notice she'd come home late, say she had a long day at work, and then brush off any questions I asked. Or she'd suddenly need her phone with her 24/7. The Sarah I knew had always been open and easygoing, but now it felt like I had to walk on eggshells just to have a simple conversation with her. I could feel the wall going up between us, and I had no idea why. But I kept telling myself it was probably stress from her new job or that maybe she just needed some space. At first, I was determined to give her the benefit of the doubt, until things started piling up. One evening, I came home from work a little earlier than usual, hoping maybe I could surprise Sarah with dinner. I figured it'd be a nice way to reconnect, you know? But as soon as I stepped into the house, I felt this weird energy. Her laughter, not directed at me, came from the living room, and I noticed her phone screen was lit up. I thought nothing of it at first, maybe she was just talking to a friend. But then I noticed how quickly she went silent when I entered, and she stuffed her phone under the cushion. I shrugged it off and went to the kitchen to start on dinner, but my mind kept wandering back to her reaction. I couldn't let it go, so I decided to check the living room when she wasn't looking. I know, sneaking a peek at someone's phone isn't my style, but I couldn't help myself. I opened up her recent messages, and the name Mike jumped out. Now, we know a few Mikes, but she never mentioned this one before. The messages were explicit. They'd been talking about how they couldn't wait to meet up again, about the things they'd done the last time they saw each other. My stomach dropped. Every line felt like a knife twisting deeper. It wasn't just the physical betrayal. It was the way she sounded so different with him, like she was this completely different person. I put the phone down before I could read more. I knew what I needed to know. The woman I thought I knew was sharing intimate secrets with another man, while I'd been sitting here, planning to cook her favorite dinner. The moment Sarah walked in, I felt this surge of adrenaline hit me. I knew I had to confront her, but how do you even start a conversation like that? I decided to keep it straightforward, but I could feel the tension crackling in the air like a live wire. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She paused, eyeing me like I'd just announced I was running for president. Sure. What's up?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "I found some messages on your phone, with Mike." I watched as her face went from casual confusion to wide-eyed panic in the blink of an eye. "James, it's not what you think," she blurted, her hands flailing in disbelief. "We were just joking around. It's harmless." "Harmless?" I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You're talking about meeting up and doing things together. That's not harmless. That's cheating, Sarah." Her demeanor shifted. She quickly turned defensive. "You're overreacting. You don't understand. We've been distant, and Mike is just someone to talk to. I didn't mean for it to get like this." Her voice was high-pitched, and she was clearly grasping for excuses. "Talk to? What kind of talking involves that?" I gestured wildly at the phone. "I can't believe you'd even think I'd buy that. Maybe if you were more present, I wouldn't have felt the need to talk to someone else." She shot back, her eyes narrowing like daggers. That's dumb. I'd been busy with work, sure, but I thought we were still in this together. As we stood there, both of us on the edge, I could feel the room closing in. I'd expected denial, maybe some tears, but this? This was something else entirely. I stood there, stunned, as Sarah's words washed over me. It felt like I was in a twisted version of a bad movie, where the plot spirals into chaos, and you can't look away, even when it hurts. Anger surged through me, but underneath that was a gut-wrenching sense of betrayal and disbelief. The woman I thought I knew, my partner, my confidant, was standing in front of me, flipping the narrative like I was the villain in this story. "Is this what you really think?" I asked, my voice trembling. "That it's my fault you decided to cheat? James, it's complicated. You've been so wrapped up in your work, I felt neglected." Her voice was rising, a mix of frustration and defiance. "I just needed someone who would pay attention to me." "Attention? You're having sex with another guy and calling it attention?" I could feel my heart racing, the shock morphing into a tidal wave of anger. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to wake myself from this nightmare. But I couldn't, because deep down, I was just crushed. As the adrenaline began to fade, a profound sadness washed over me. It felt like a heavy blanket pressing down on my chest, and I realized how naive I had been to ignore all those signs. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it felt like a betrayal of our entire life together. The tears started to well up, and I didn't even try to hold them back. "I thought we were a team, Sarah," I said, my voice cracking. "I thought we were building a future together." "James, please," she pleaded, suddenly looking vulnerable, her bravado crumbling. "It was just a mistake. I love you. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Love? What kind of love leads to this?" I spat out. I could feel the walls of our life together closing in around me. The laughter, the shared dreams, the late-night talks, all of it felt like a cruel joke now. I couldn't reconcile this image of Sarah with the one standing before me. As the silence hung heavily between us, I knew that this was just the beginning of a much darker emotional journey. After that explosive confrontation, I spent the night tossing and turning, consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. I felt angry, betrayed, and heartbroken, all spiraling together until it was hard to tell where one feeling ended and the next began. I replayed every moment, every loving memory, wondering how they could coexist with this reality. How could Sarah do this? Why couldn't she just talk to me? By morning, I was exhausted but also resolute. I had to make a decision. We had plans, dreams, a life together, but now it felt like those dreams were shattered glass scattered all over the floor. I couldn't just sweep it under the rug and pretend everything was fine. I needed to know what I wanted, what I could live with. When I finally confronted Sarah again, I did so with a calmer demeanor, though the hurt still radiated through me. "We need to talk about what this means for us," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked defeated, and that was something I hadn't expected. "I know I messed up, James. I'll do anything to fix this. Just give me another chance." Her voice trembled as she spoke, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I fell in love with. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I replied, my heart racing. "It's not just a mistake. You shattered my trust. I don't think I can look at you the same way again." Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't let that sway me. I had to think about myself for once. "I need time to figure this out. I can't just pretend it didn't happen. I think it's best if we take a break." She gasped, as if I'd slapped her. "You can't be serious. You can't throw away everything we built because of one mistake." "Was it just one mistake?" I challenged. "This wasn't just a slip-up. It was a choice, a series of choices. And I need to protect myself right now." I packed a few bags and left our home, the place that used to feel so safe. It felt like I was ripping out a piece of my heart with every step I took away from the life we built. As I drove away, I realized that leaving wasn't just about physical distance. It was about reclaiming my dignity and sanity. That day marked the beginning of my healing journey, a path filled with uncertainty but also the possibility of reclaiming my life. In the days that followed, I found myself navigating a roller coaster of emotions. There were moments when anger flared up, like when I saw something that reminded me of our life together, or when I caught myself replaying our conversations in my head, looking for clues I might have missed. Other times, a profound sadness would hit me like a wave, pulling me down into the depths of what I lost. I spent a lot of time reflecting, thinking about who I was without Sarah and what I wanted for my future. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I realized how much I had ignored my own needs while trying to accommodate hers. I began to focus on self-care, picking up hobbies I'd let slide over the years, like biking and reading more. I sought advice from friends and family, leaning on their support to help me through this dark chapter. Sarah tried to reach out, sending messages and voicemails filled with apologies, pleas for another chance. Part of me wanted to respond, to fix things, but I held my ground. I had to remind myself that I was worthy of a love that wasn't built on deceit. Eventually, I made a decision. I knew I needed closure, and that meant having one final conversation with Sarah. We met at a coffee shop, a neutral ground that felt less loaded than our home. I could see the anxiety etched on her face as she approached me, but I stood my ground, determined to remain composed. "James, I'm so sorry for what I did," she started, her voice shaking. "I made a terrible mistake, and I've realized just how much I love you. I want to make this right." I held up a hand, cutting her off gently. "I appreciate your honesty, Sarah, but I've done a lot of thinking. I can't go back to what we had. It's not just about the affair, it's about everything that led to it. I don't think we can rebuild that trust, and I'm not sure I want to." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she looked as if I'd ripped the ground out from under her. "You're really done?" she asked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I need to be done. I deserve a relationship built on honesty and trust, not one where I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. I hope you find that for yourself too." As I walked away from that coffee shop, I felt a sense of liberation. The weight that had been crushing my chest began to lift, and for the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. It was a painful decision, but it was also a necessary one. I learned that I could survive this heartache and come out stronger on the other side. To anyone out there facing something similar, take the time you need to heal. Know your worth and don't settle for less than you deserve. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, rebuilding it is often a path lined with thorns. It's okay to walk away for your own well-being. You are not alone, and brighter days are ahead. Looking back now, it's surreal to think about everything I went through. It's been a few months since that final conversation with Sarah, and while the scars still linger, I can see the growth within myself. I started therapy not long after we parted ways, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Talking to someone who didn't know me or the intricate details of my life helped me process the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over my mind. Through therapy, I realized that the signs of trouble in our relationship had been there all along, but I had chosen to ignore them. I'd put Sarah on a pedestal, prioritizing her happiness over my own. That's not to say I didn't love her. I did, deeply. But love can't thrive in a vacuum. It requires communication, honesty, and mutual respect. And somewhere along the way, we lost that. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to rebuild my life. I started biking again, exploring new trails and rediscovering the joy that comes from being outdoors. Each ride became a metaphor for my journey, challenging, sometimes steep, but ultimately rewarding. I made new friends, engaged in deeper conversations, and even took up painting. I never thought I'd enjoy it, but putting brush to canvas became an outlet for my emotions. I also started to reflect on the qualities I wanted in my next relationship. Trust, open communication, and genuine affection became non-negotiables. I learned to appreciate the importance of setting boundaries, not just for others but for myself. I was becoming the person I always wanted to be, independent and resilient. Most importantly, I learned that healing isn't a linear path. There are good days and bad days. I allowed myself to feel the sadness when it came, but I also embraced the joy of moving forward. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but I realized that it was okay to be vulnerable again. Each new connection taught me something different, and I found myself growing more confident in my worth. I also came to understand that my relationship with Sarah, as painful as it was to end, had its own purpose. It taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-respect. I realized that while I couldn't change the past, I had the power to shape my future. The experience became a catalyst for transformation, pushing me to step into a brighter chapter of my life. Now, as I sit here reflecting on the journey, I'm filled with gratitude for the lessons learned. I know that heartache is a part of life, but it doesn't define us. Instead, it's how we choose to respond that shapes our future. Life is too short to stay tethered to someone who doesn't value you, and sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the most rewarding outcomes. As I close this chapter of my life, I can't help but feel a sense of peace settling in. Sure, the scars of betrayal will always be a part of my story, but they've transformed into a testament of my resilience. I'm not just a victim of infidelity. I'm a survivor who learned the hard way about the intricacies of love and trust. The journey has led me to rediscover myself, and I'm grateful for that. I've learned to embrace vulnerability without letting it define me. Each new relationship I've explored has opened my eyes to the possibilities of connection, and I've met some incredible people along the way. It's refreshing to feel that flutter of excitement again, knowing I can open my heart without fear of repeating the past. I've also made it a priority to keep communication open in my new relationships. It's funny how I took that for granted before. Now I encourage the people I date to share their thoughts and feelings, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. I've learned that honesty is key, and I'd rather have tough conversations than hide behind facades. In the process of healing, I found a community of friends who supported me through my darkest moments. They reminded me that I'm worthy of love, respect, and happiness. They showed me that it's okay to lean on others when times get tough. I've committed to being that friend for others as well, offering support and understanding to anyone facing their own battles. To anyone out there navigating the rough waters of betrayal, I want to leave you with this: it's okay to grieve the relationship you thought you had. Allow yourself to feel the pain, but don't let it consume you. Recognize your worth and don't settle for less than you deserve. Healing takes time, but each step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to rediscovering your strength and joy. I may have lost Sarah, but I gained so much more in the process: self-awareness, resilience, and the understanding that I am deserving of love that is genuine and whole. As I look to the future, I do so with hope and excitement, ready to embrace whatever comes next. Life is a beautiful, messy adventure, and I'm finally ready to enjoy the ride.